Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Wish I was there with you, Commissioner Byrd, but
Oh yeah, we got a room full here. Brought cake and ice cream. And we're gonna cook steaks out here on the patio in a minute. Too bad you're not here.
Too bad. Well, it's 9:30 straight up.
There's 3 of us here. Oh, 4, excuse me.
Can you all hear me?
We are. Good morning.
Loud and clear, sir.
Well, good morning all, and thank you for that yar. I'm not quite sure what that means, but
Morning, everyone. Sorry to be a minute late here.
Good morning. 2 minutes late.
Two.
And counting.
Sorry, my laptop didn't want to cooperate with me this morning. Well,
you're only 1 minute late to me. So if that makes you feel any better.
it does. It does. It's important. So let's get started. It's 9:32 in the morning, Wednesday, August 17th. This is the open meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. I'm Chairperson Cynthia Hall, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. So I'd like to start with the roll call. Michael Smith, could you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Fishman.
Here.
Commissioner Maestas.
I'm here.
Commissioner Byrd.
I'm present.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Here.
And Commissioner Hall.
Here.
We have 5 commissioners, constitutes a quorum.
Thank you, Mike. Let's see. Now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see. I see Mike Rippiger. You're on the, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol. I think I'm getting it wrong.
And the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. I haven't recited it in a while. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that, Mike. I guess.
No, it's no problem. It's no problem.
Okay, great. All right, moving on. We have consideration and approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Well, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you. I've got a motion. Have I got a second?
Second.
I
Oh,
was
thank
waiting
you.
for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Byrd for your cooperation. Okay, I got a motion and a second. I'd like to have Mike take the roll call. Vote.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
The agenda is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Let's see, and now we have introduction of special guests. And I see we have a company called Seasol Power LLC, a presentation. And I see Athena Christodolo. Is this your company, Athena? You're on mute.
Go. Yes, that is my company. Thank you.
Oh, okay, well, would you, and I see you have someone with you. You want to proceed and introduce your colleague?
Walter Gerstel will be answering questions at the end, so I'll introduce him at the end if that's okay.
Okay, can you increase your output there, your volume?
Oh, okay. I can try. Let's. Oops. No, I can advance the slide. What if I speak louder? Does that work?
Okay, that works. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chair Hall, who is my commissioner at the moment, and the and other commissioners. My name's Athena Christodoulou, and I'm the president of Seasol Power. We're here to educate you and inform you about clean energy storage that is developing in your state. And I will just jump right into it because I'm a retired Navy engineer and we just get right to the point and move right along. So we're really talking about energy and with energy, we have to make sure that we are knowing where it comes from and where it's going to. So if you see this is my favorite pasta chart from Lawrence Livermore National Labs. One point on this one is 2020 is almost 100 quads. And so you can think of the amounts in percentages then. The next chart should make it a little easier. So what you have on that chart is you have the energy sources on the left. You have the energy sinks or where they go to on the right. And in the middle is this beautiful, beautiful energy called electricity. Think of it as the power of the gods, and all the power energy sources either go to electricity, heat, or heat to electricity, or are burned for heat because kinetic energy. And then we have to remember that first law means that of thermodynamics is no energy is created nor destroyed, just altered in form. Now, the problem is that we need to transition to clean energy. It's an emergency. We have the climate crisis. We have the fossil fuel industry getting $20 billion in direct subsidies and $650 billion in indirect subsidies a year as they don't clean up their mess or pay for the health and environmental damage. Globally, almost 9 million people die a year. 30% of deaths in East Asia are from fossil fuel air pollution. And we know that people and money, our resources are limited. So let's look at another wonderful chart. Looks very similar. The only thing is we are talking about carbon dioxide because we know that's the problem with climate change, fossil fuel emissions. On your left, again, you see the sources. And if you look, the gray is the carbon dioxide on the right, and it's coming from all the three. We won't discuss the biomass on the left. What's important about this is we need to make sure that we cut our net carbon 50% by 2030 per the IPCC, that we're using it for electricity, heat, and kinetic energy, and that there's some things missing on this chart. For example, waste emissions from methane leaks. And the fact that our coal in the Northwest is actually methane coal. So when you open a coal mine, you are emitting methane. I like that chart. I guess I forgot to talk about that chart, the net carbon versus year. The green line, starting from left to right, goes down following IPCC requirements. That's to maintain a stable climate. The red line is a much more slow reduction. And then you can see that the orange interior is extra carbon that is emitted, which will push us over the cliff. And then the blue is if we go faster. And just a shout out to life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, which is what we're talking about. And this is speaking entirely about electrical generation. And so you can look at that chart. One note is fracked hydrogen is 20% worse than burning fracked natural gas. So remember that. Now, one thing about renewable energy is we know it's going to need storage. This chart is logarithmic, which means the divisions aren't linear. They aren't the same. So if you see on your left, whole part of is seconds, the next is minutes, the next is hours, the next in days. And then across to the right is power rating, how powerful, what power you're using. And these are the different options at this time. Lithium ion batteries in kind of the middle of it, it seems to be best used for under 4 hours, but now the race is undergoing to find out what to use for hours and days. And if you take a look, GTES is this big blob of orange to purple, and it covers quite a bit of it. And what is GTES? GTES is gigawatt hour thermal energy storage. Essentially is taking electricity and converting it to heat. Hot rocks, think of it, hot rocks could save the world. And then that heat could then afterwards be used to be converted to electricity or be used as heat. How does it operate? Think of a big pool or box of rocks, and you're going to take a blow dryer and blow hot air into it. It'll heat the rocks eventually. Because we're talking about large quantities, it's self-insulating. And then at a later time, hours, days, even months later, you can provide heat on demand in a reverse manner. Our first case study, we looked at rebuilding a legacy plant with the power block intact and just adding a repository at the plant as the renewable energy is deployed, and we have more than enough electrons on the grid that we can store them. And it can take electricity from solar and wind and nuclear, which is, I taught nuclear power, I could talk to you all day about, we won't. Or take heat directly from the solar and nuclear. And it's a turnkey solution that maintains much of the generating plant workforce. We did a case study a little more specific. We took pulled one out of the hat and found out, it could take for a 4-hour discharge at 50 megawatts. The size of the GTES would be about 100 by 150 by 30 feet high, and it does scale linearly, which means if you need double, you just build double. And it's rocks. So we're walking on the solution every day practically. The other case is, hey, the new grid is going to be very different. And so maybe you place a power plant strategically on the grid, maybe near a lot of wind. You use the latest power block technology. And again, you have flexible exhaust heat usage. It could be used for heat or continue to be used for electricity. And this could be a merchant or in power purchase or utility owned. We've done the levelized cost of storage and the CapEx. You can look at those later. It's cheap. Rock is cheap. And it's mostly engineering. And so these were done for a 100 megawatt 4-hour plant using legacy gas plant and 200 discharges per year. If you look far right is on the levelized cost of storage. It's very much in comparison or much better than batteries and pump storage. And if you look at the right graph, capital expenditures, that's how much it is to build it. It's the bottom line, and it like I said, rock is cheap. Now, one thing that we have found very intriguing is we're now going into Justice 40 and trying to find solutions that will help underrepresented populations. So we see that there's an opportunity to turn peaker plants into long duration storage and replace dirty gas with clean storage while maintaining workforce. And so on the left, with the state of New Mexico shows locations of peakers. The graph on the kind of right of it shows how the population is positioned in those areas. So then we would be able to help those underrepresented populations. And there's lots of opportunity all over the world, all over the country. Natural gas are the reddish, the coal is gray, and we need to transfer. And that's it. Thank you very much. And we're open for questions.
Commissioners, does anybody have a question or questions for Ms. Christodoulou or Mr. Gersel? If I pronounce that right.
Yes, it's Dr. Walter Gerstel. He's a
Dr.
retired civil engineering professor from UNM and my co-founder and CTO.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, by the way, Ms. Christodoulou and Dr. Gerstel. And I believe I heard Commissioner Fishman. Okay.
Yeah. In terms of cost, I wanted to see if I could unpack that a little bit. The reading that I've done for long-term storage, at any rate, has heated rock as fairly expensive, and mostly I think because of the energy loss when you go through a cycle storing that way. I wondered if you could expand a little. You're presenting it as being inexpensive, and I just wanted to unpack a little bit what the cost is to build versus the cost to operate and the energy loss during a cycle of storage. So maybe you can give us a little bit more on that.
Do you want me to pull up the slide that shows it, or I'm going to let Walter do this because he developed all the economic.
Okay, however you guys can best walk through that.
Thank you, Mr. Fishman. So of course, the levelized cost of storage depends very strongly upon the use case. And I'm sorry. So we are taking into account the fact that we can use existing legacy fossil fuel plants. So the capital expenditure is quite low for thermal energy storage. And also we are counting on large quantities of storage medium so that the ratio of surface area to volume of stored material is quite low, so that we can store this. Essentially, we're counting on less than 1% of energy loss per day, which is fairly common in the literature. And we think it can be much less than 1% of energy loss per day. Also, we're taking into account the fact that we think that the heat that is lost is not really lost. It can be used for industrial purposes, such as brick making or concrete making, that kind of thing. Steel making as well, although there's no steel making here in New Mexico. But drying chilies and that kind of thing can also be a use of that heat. So I've done some detailed analyses over the last several years, and I come up with a cost, depending upon the cost of renewable energy for charging and so on, of between 5 cents per kilowatt hour and 20 cents per kilowatt hour. That's quite a bit less than lithium ion batteries, which are typically, on the order of 20 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour, depending upon the use case. I hope that answers your question, and I'd be happy to share my spreadsheets and analysis with you.
Just a quick follow-up on the, when you're saying you're using existing plants, and I'm not sure I understood this correctly in the presentation. We were talking about using existing peaker plants.
Yeah, so we've focused on the Reeves generating station here in Albuquerque in the North Valley, which is a 156 megawatt plant with 3 power blocks. We would love to basically retrofit one of the power blocks as a demonstration of the technology to start out with.
So in that case, the energy stored would be fossil fuel generated energy from the plant? Am I understanding that correctly, or?
No. What we would do is we would use renewable energy, for instance, in the middle of the day when there's an excess of renewable energy, to charge our thermal repository. And then when energy is needed, perhaps that night or later in the day, we would augment the fossil, that's a natural gas plant, with heat going directly into the boiler, the steam generator, or it could be heat going directly into the burner. So either way, you're augmenting the plant.
So, okay. And then eventually the thought would be you could turn off the fossil fuel generation part of it and use all the rest of the infrastructure you've built there.
Correct. Yeah, and that's one scenario.
Okay.
It offers a smooth off-ramp from natural gas burning to renewable energy storage.
Okay. It took me a while there, but I think I get it now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? I guess I was wondering, is this theoretical at this point, or because I heard Dr. Gerstel, I hear you say that you'd like to retrofit the plant, but have you done any, smaller pilot tests? Could you describe those a little?
Yes, we currently have a project. It's called a Technology Commercialization Fund project funded by the DOE in collaboration with Sandia National Laboratories. Also, there have been other commercial operations, for instance, Siemens Gamesa in Germany that has a similar type of demonstration project. So there are a number of demonstration projects of this type, mostly in Europe and Africa, and also in South Africa, yeah.
So are there results you could describe from those or yours?
There are plenty of papers. We're midway through an 18-month demonstration project at Sandia National Labs. We will be publishing that work in the coming year. We also have a paper that we've written. I could send it to you if you're interested.
Sure, of course. Please do. Well, excellent. Commissioners.
Madam Chair, just
yes.
a quick follow-up on the Sandia demonstration. We've been doing some collaborating with Sandia on some modeling, and they have been kind of the lead national lab on looking into battery storage. And I'm kind of surprised in our collaboration with them, we haven't heard anything about this project. So I'd very much like to get a couple of names and folks we can contact and just just ask questions and learn more and just expand our exposure.
We will do that. We'll introduce you to this is the solar demonstration project, concentrating solar demonstration project are the folks that we're working with. And at Sandia, it's a big organization. You're
Yep.
right. There's the battery folks, and they don't necessarily talk to the concentrating solar folks. So we'll introduce you to them.
Thank you. And you've got our contact information. So,
Yes.
feel free.
Great. Good deal. Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate your presentation. And we'll let you go. We're going to move on with our agenda, but thanks very much for showing up and explaining your clever idea.
Thank you.
And thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so now we come to public comment. Do we have any public commenters signed up, folks? Hans?
Madam Chair, I've had no one request to make comment today. So if there is no one in the hearing room that has shown up in person, there is no one for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we have consideration and approval of prior meeting minutes. The minutes of July 27th, 2022, open meeting. Do I have a motion or discuss? Yeah, let's see. Do we have any amendments to make? That's what I want to ask. Anybody have any amendments to these minutes? Corrections? I don't mean amendments, I mean corrections. Okay, no discussion, right? Okay, so.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'll move to approve the minutes of the July 27, 2022 open meeting.
thank you, Vice Chair Maestas.
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. So let's take the roll call vote. Mike, please.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas.
Aye.
The minutes are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, moving on to consent action items. We have 3 items. Mike, would you like to read those into the agenda, into the record?
Yes, the consent action items on the agenda for today consist of transportation matter 22-00194 TREN in the matter of the, I'm sorry, I think I'm looking. No, this is correct. I'm sorry. I thought this was, I thought I was looking at the matters that were on the July 27th meeting. It's in the matter of the investigation of Lyft Inc. It's a potential order regarding a joint response agreement. And then the utility matters are case 22-00099 UT in the matter of a commission rulemaking to promulgate amendments to NMPRC Rule 17.1.2 NMAC applications for new rates and new sections in 17.3.510 NMAC and 17.3.610 NMAC to require annual reporting by electric and gas utilities. It's a potential order reissuing notice of proposed rulemaking. And then case 20-00158 UT in the matter of commission rulemaking regarding NMPRC Rule 17.9.572 NMAC, renewable energy for electric utilities. And that is also a potential order reissuing notice of proposed rulemaking.
Thanks, Mike. Do we have any, let's see, can we have a roll call vote, please? Oh, no, we need a motion. I'm sorry. I need a motion and a second, folks.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All right, now can we have a roll call vote on this item?
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
The consent action items are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, now moving on to regular action items. We have none in transportation, and we have two for utility matters. The first one is 19-0018 UT, presented by Judy Amer, and it's on the matter of Public Service Company of Mexico's abandonment of San Juan Generating Station Units 1 and 4, a potential compliance order. Judy, would you like to present on this matter?
Yes, good morning, Commissioner Hall and members of the commission. This matter comes before you today upon the motion of the commission. Two commissioners, Commissioner Fishman and Commissioner Maestas, both requested that we bring this potential order for PNM to file a compliance report. The report is concerning the June 29th final order adopting with addition the hearing examiner's June 18th, 2022 recommended decision in the show cause proceeding. It required many things, one of them being for PNM to implement a rate credits. And there are certain pertinent decretal paragraphs that we are concerned about compliance with. First, there's decretal paragraph B that says PNM shall file an advice notice by July 1st, 2022, that revises PNM's rates to remove all of the costs of San Juan Unit 1 from rates and issues rate credits to customers using the allocation and rate design methodology approved for.
Judy, excuse me, do you want to put that up on the screen so people can see it?
I don't have control of the screen, but whoever does could put up the page 1 of the potential order. But basically, this is the filing the advice notice by July 1 to remove all costs of San Juan Unit 1 from rates and issue rate credits. And then decretal paragraph D, PNM shall transfer the payments due and owing under section 62-18-16 to the Indian Affairs Fund, the Economic Development Assistant Fund, and the Displaced Workers Assistant Fund within 30 days of the abandonment of San Juan Unit 1.
Mm-hmm.
And our final order accepted those decretal paragraphs and added certain other requirements. And A and B have to do with things that are going to happen in the future about PNM filing a report in this docket no later than October 15th. Containing a record of all its costs incurred in the show cause proceeding, so that the prudency of these costs will be known and subject to review in PNM's forthcoming rate case. But that's not going to happen till October 15th. And then there's another qualifier about the prudency review. But the last thing is something that we're concerned with here, is that an immediate rate credit by PNM that I just detailed, as set forth in the decretal paragraphs, is required to ensure fair, just, and reasonable rates based upon the preponderance of evidence in the record that upon the abandonment of units 1 and 4, PNM's rates are not and will not be or shall not be fair, just, and reasonable if the immediate rate credit is not issued to rate payers, so that the unit's costs are no longer in rates. And then pertaining to the decretal paragraph about transferring the payments to those different funds that I just talked about, the final order cross-referenced table on page 101 of the RD, which stated the exact amounts of the funds that needed to be transferred. So what this order does is finds that it would be in the best interest of the public for PNM to file a compliance report that demonstrates it's in compliance with the final order, and for utility division staff to review PNM's compliance report and file a responsive pleading that either confirms that PNM's compliance report establishes that PNM is in compliance with the final order, or if not, identifies whether further investigation is required to establish compliance, or whether an enforcement action should be brought against PNM. For these reasons, the potential order would require PNM no later than August 24th, 2022, to file a compliance report that demonstrates it's in compliance with the final order, which shall include: 1, proof that advice notice number 588, which was filed on July 5th, 2022, with a corrected effective date of July 31st, 2022, is sufficient to satisfy the required revision of PNM's rates to issue rate credits and to remove all costs of San Juan Unit 1 from rates using the allocation and rate design methodology approved for ETCs in the financing order. And the second, hold on, I'm moving my cursor. The second thing is proof that PNM has transferred the payments due and owing under 62-1816 to the Indian Affairs Fund, the Economic Development Assistance Fund, and the Displaced Worker Assistance Fund within 30 days of the abandonment of San Juan Unit 1 in the amounts as set forth in the table on page 101 of the RD. And 3, proof that customer bills currently reflect the rate credit issued to customers pursuant to advice notice number 588. The second decretal paragraph is that no later than August 31st, 2022, utility division staff shall file a responsive pleading that either confirms that PNM's compliance report establishes that PNM is in compliance with the final order, and if not, identifies whether further investigation is required to establish compliance, or whether an enforcement action should be brought against PNM. And so that's the order, and I stand for questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Either Commissioner Fishman or Commissioner Maestas, you want to?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Yeah, I think this order is timely in that it's sandwiched between the abandonment of units 1 and 4, and that it will provide some certainty to the appropriate state agencies that are poised to implement the economic impact mitigation assistance programs. So I support this order. I did have one question. I thought that there were also some SEC filings that had to be made but that was more in conjunction with the whole abandonment and securitization. Are the SEC filings, Judy Morris, tied to the securitization, which of course is going to be delayed until the next reg case? At least that's P&M's intent.
Yes. So the SEC filings would not happen until P&M was ready to issue the bonds.
Okay, that's all I had, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. Commissioner Fishman, do you have anything to add? No? Okay. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Byrd or Commissioner Vicente Aguilar? Any comments?
I
Or
forgot to,
questions?
excuse me.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm sorry, did I cut someone off?
No. Oh, did you want to say something, Commissioner Fishman?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that when we're talking about the credits, that the credits are supposed to be on the bills. If they haven't been on the bills, would they be retroactive to the July 31st date, I believe it was, when the plant closed?
Well, when a utility files an advice notice, it becomes, unless suspended, and it wasn't suspended, it becomes effective 30 days after filing. Originally P&M filed an advice notice that had a July 1st effective date, but that was not proper, and they filed a corrected advice notice number 588, which had the effective date of July 31st, 2022. So the rate credit was effective as of July 31st, 2022. I don't know exactly when the bills are issued by P&M, but bills issued July 31st, 2022, according to the final order, should include the rate credit.
Okay.
And that is the proof that we are trying to request by this order. And the order, if you can think of another way of saying it, that I'm welcome to suggestions, but the way it's worded now is proof that customer bills reflect the rate credit issued to the customers pursuant to the advice number 588.
Okay, so they will have already skated for 1 month, even after we implement this. From July 1st to July 31st.
That's one way of yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make that as clear as possible. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, now that Commissioner Fishman, now that you mentioned that point, is there a remedy for that, or Judy? Maybe I should ask you that question.
At that point, I think anything that the commission might think about doing about that 1 month would be retroactive rate making. At that point, they only required by the final order to file the advice notice immediately, which they did, and according to the statute, advice notices are effective 30 days after they're filed, unless suspended.
I see. Thank you very much. Okay, any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the order.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. We've got a motion and a second. Mike, can you take the roll call vote?
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
The order is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That is case number 21-00258 UT, presented by Russell Fisk in the matter of amendments to the State Rural Universal Service Fund Rule 17.11.10, New Mexico Annotated Code, to conform rule to 2021 legislation. So Russell, would you like to present, please?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
All right. Excuse me. So we opened one telecom rulemaking last week. That was or maybe it's the week before. I think it was last week. For the commission did for the institutional operator service providers rule. This week, yet another telecom rulemaking shall be opened. That will be all for the telecom rulemakings this year, I swear. This one, as the caption indicates, would conform the SRUSF rule, which was promulgated under the Rural Telecommunications Act of New Mexico, or the RTA, to conform to three bills that were adopted in last year's legislative session. Two of them were broadband related bills, and one bill concerned the support that Sacred Wind Communications Inc. Now receives from the commission, which was decided last year. So the two other bills which concern broadband issues were the creation of the Connect New Mexico Act, which created the Connect New Mexico Council, which I believe has met 2 or 3 times now. And the Connect New Mexico Act also establishes a Connect New Mexico Fund to be overseen by the council. The council is responsible for promulgating a broadband knowledge and digital equity analysis and plan to be incorporated into the state broadband plan. Now, the state broadband plan is something that was covered by the other broadband bill that was passed in 2021. That was the Broadband Access and Expansion Act. That was the bill that created the Office of Broadband Access and Expansion within NMPRC, which is tasked with formulating quality of service standards, creating a publicly accessible state broadband access map, and some more. I won't get into too much more detail, but they will be responsible for the statewide broadband plan. Now, I think the commissioners are aware that, I've sent a number of emails over the past couple of years that telecom staff and I have been in contact with particularly NMPRC, the Office of Broadband Access and Expansion, which is still in the process of being set up. And we've also been in contact with Matt Schmidt, who is the broadband czar for the governor. And of course, they're now, in addition to all this, they're dealing with a lot of federal money and how to spend federal money and coordinate it with this type of state coordination. But we've informally been coordinating with the right people. So, but this rulemaking is needed because there are some changes to the rule that need to be made to provide for that coordination, to make it a formal part of our rule. And some of the legislation actually from 2021 actually amended the Rural Telecom Act to say the commission's rules under this act shall do such and such. And so the amendments are needed. So staff provided recommendations and explanations of those recommendations. This was back in November of last year. It's been sitting on my desk for a little while. I apologize for that. I'll only say 2 words in explanation of that, and that is those words are community and solar. But we'll have time to finish this year. I don't think there'll be a lot of controversy on a rulemaking like this. We're just trying to get the rule aligned with the statutes. And I can go into the detail that was provided by staff, which I reiterate in the proposed order in the memo. But I think at this point, I'll just stand for questions, because I think if there are any questions about specific issues in the proposed rule, but the order issuing NOPR, the proposed order would just take staff's recommended proposed rule as the commission's proposed rule and begin a process with comments becoming due at the end of October, a public hearing in November 8th, and a record closure date of November 11th, which provides plenty of time for a final order to be issued adopting amendments to the SRUSF rule. So with that, I'll take any questions. And we also have Mike Ripperger present. I'm sorry. We also have Mike Ripperger present if there are specific questions about staff's recommendations that I can't answer. Mike is very knowledgeable, as you know, in the world of telecom and broadband, even if he does not know our state's flags pledge.
Ouch.
Well, nobody's perfect. Well, thank you very much, Russell. Commissioners, does anyone have questions for Russell or Mike? Yes, Vice Chair Maestas.
Yeah, I understand all the changes, the legislative changes that are requiring this update to our rule. But my question is, what is the interim process until the statewide broadband plan is finalized and approved? Because I believe we have another cycle of soliciting applications and awarding applications under our own broadband program. And if consultation is required in terms of what our project recommendations are to ensure that they're consistent with the broadband plan, what do we do in the absence of a broadband plan?
Commissioner Maestas, that's a very good question. And this is something we discussed specifically a few months ago when we were on the phone with Matt Schmidt. They were talking at that time about coordination with regard to federal infrastructure money coming in, but the same applies with regard to coordinating with the council and the OBAE. The commission, under the current rule, the way the commission can coordinate with these other offices, which have not yet produced a state broadband plan, but we can coordinate to the extent they're able. I mean, they're really still in the process of getting set up, is through the prioritization. In other words, the final decision that the commission makes with regard to applications. For instance, we can take input and we can provide the applications. I believe we already have provided the applications, or at least a link to the applications in the current docket to the relevant people at NM do it. Because the rule does not provide a lot of flexibility when it comes to the minimum qualifications for applications that are filed. It's very detailed, but it does provide the commission with a tremendous amount of discretion when it comes to the prior of what applications actually get chosen for funding. And because the rule only lists one criterion, which is to prefer unserved areas over underserved areas, which is what the commission has done for the past 2 years. But even that's something that can be deviated from without a variance in that rule. So when it comes time to choose projects in October or November, then the commission at that time will be doing informal coordination. And I mean, even before then, we'll be reaching out to let the, as we have already, to make sure we coordinate with whatever the current status is of the plan, if there's a draft or anything like that, and also to coordinate with federal infrastructure spending so that the commission can prioritize projects based on those criteria. That criteria as well. So that's how we can do it without a rule. But this rule would make changes to the more specific parts of the broadband program provision, which is in subsection 31. which would provide for, actually incorporating some of these things into the application process and the application requirements.
Okay, so I understand that this rule change wouldn't change our criteria, just going to require coordination and the blessing of the Connect New Mexico Council. Will the rule be finalized before we actually entertain broadband project application awards?
No, it will not. This will be done by the end of the year, but the current version of the rule that's in place will be the operative rule for this entire application cycle, because the applications have already been filed and the decision will probably be made in late October or early November. But that's why I said we can pack in whatever informal coordination we need to do with the other state agencies in the prioritization process, because our rule does leave a lot of room for the commission to say, we're going to prioritize unserved areas over underserved, but some of these unserved areas, some of these projects are actually things that won't fit into the state broadband plan or conflict with something that's going on and where we've been told. And the commission can handle it that way, can do that informal coordination without a change to the rule at this point.
So my issue too is, has the Connect New Mexico Council been briefed on our prioritization process and criteria? That way, if they're at least aware of what our process is, they'll still concur with our recommendations in the absence of a statewide broadband plan.
Commissioner Mayer says, yes, we've actually been more in contact with the Office of Broadband Expansion and Access. But I do believe Mike and Eugene have been in contact with the council as well. Can I refer the rest of this question to Mike?
Yes.
Sure.
That's all right with you, Commissioner.
Sure.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mayer says we've fielded informal inquiries from the Office of Broadband Access and Expansion and one or two members of the legislature, analysts, and the committee members about the process. We forwarded them information. They understand what the process is like. They've had access to prior commission cases where the commission's evaluated the projects, and they could see how that went, but they have not requested that we actually go to them and present about the process to them.
Well, I don't know, Madam Chair, I would suggest that we do that to address any questions in this interim period until a statewide broadband plan is developed. The only other concern I have is that we had approached informally key decision makers about helping to obligate some of the federal funds that have been made available using our process until a statewide broadband plan is developed and approved. Has there been any traction, either Mike or I know Wayne? I think Wayne had some involvement in that, because typically the feds condition the appropriation of these kind of funds on the development of a plan. And since we don't have one, I wonder if that is one of the key conditions to allowing the federal funds to flow. And if that's not the case, if this federal funding is not held in abeyance pending the development of a statewide plan, why couldn't our process at least begin obligating some of this federal money, since we turned away, as I recall, about $25 million in shovel-ready broadband projects last year? So can you address that, either Mike or anybody?
Mr. Mayor says, I'll begin and then refer it to Mike, but
Okay.
we did provide those actual applications, we identified them, provided the order, I think about a year ago, to Matt Schmidt, the governor's, czar. I don't know if they use that word czar, but I am for broadband, and said, these are ones that maybe federal funding could be used for. And I don't know, I'll refer it to Mike if there's been there hadn't been any developments as far as I had heard Mike, you can continue that.
Yeah, if I could. The feds required the states some months ago as a preliminary step to provide a letter of interest, which New Mexico did and other states did, but also they required them to submit a preliminary plan. And I know that they were putting that together, and they may have already submitted it. So they're already well on the way to getting that stuff together. I think they're actually, because I've been watching the Connect New Mexico Council meetings. There is one today at 2:00. So I watch those remotely and take notes, and I pass those on to Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. But they are in process. They are hiring people. They do have, aside from Mr. Schmidt, they've hired a broadband director, and they are starting to populate positions underneath that director. We were recently contacted by OBAE, Office of Broadband Access and Expansion, to meet with them again. We are having scheduling issues, but we will do that. But I know there's a couple members on the Connect New Mexico Council who are ILECs, who have received broadband funding from our fund. I know that they've been talking to the people there about the success of our program and the process. And so they've had some ears. They've talked to a few people on there about that. And again, we have done what we could to forward information on how our process works. But however the commission would like us to interface either with the council or the office, broadband access and expansion, we'll be glad to do that.
Thank you, Mike. And one thing that I'm a little concerned about, before we get kind of inundated with the next round of projects, I'd like to have a discussion about the criteria well in advance of the decision point to award project applications. I'd like to discuss, for example, what do we do with the $25 million in total projects that we turned away for lack of funding? I realize I think almost all of them were not categorized under the unserved, it was underserved. And I'd also like to discuss, how can we equitably allocate these funds to different developers. I just noticed a very strong trend of multiple developers getting the lion's share of the project application awards. And I believe we have some discretion in perhaps revisiting the criteria, but anyway, Madam Chair, not to belabor the point, I would like to have a discussion about the next crop of projects and what we do with the projects, the shovel-ready projects that we turned away, and is there a need to revisit the criteria regarding selection? Anyway, Madam Chair, that's all I had.
Commissioner, Madam Chair, can I just add something that
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Vice Chair Maestas. I share your concerns, and I would like to hear what Russell has to say. And I understand from Mike, it sounds like there may be some movement by the broadband office. So, Mike, I thought I saw you wanting to say something before Russell said that. Shall I let you go first, or?
Madam Chair, no, I that's fine. I think we're good. You can move on to Russell.
Okay, fine. Russell, please let me know what you want to say here.
Just a quick but important, very relevant, responsive note to what Commissioner Maestas was asking about with the applications that we weren't able to grant. Wayne was just reminding me, because he was on one of these calls, that the sticking point when it came to funding, finding other state funding for these applications was other state funding, that is, the anti-donation clause. Now the federal money, I don't know that it'd be subject, even though it comes to the state, and then I don't know if that's subject to the anti-donation clause. But because our projects are by private entities, there are issues with using state money to fund those projects. Now you may wonder how it is that we do this under the SRUSF. And no one has ever raised the anti-donation clause. Apparently, there's been no challenge. What's funny is that, Madam Chair, your husband wrote a very good article years ago about the anti-donation clause, and he mentioned the SRUSF and said no one's ever challenged that one. So the anti-donation clause, when it comes to using state money for these projects, because the money goes directly to these private entities, was raised as an issue when we were discussing other state sources of money. I don't know if it would apply to federal money. Once the federal money comes in, I don't know if it loses its character as federal money, becomes state money to be used, and then it would be subject to the anti-donation clause or not. That'd be a question, but definitely when it came to actual state money, that was their issue, and it's hard to get around the anti-donation clause. It's very broad.
But isn't there a state match that's required with the federal money, which would maintain the distinction between federal and state?
Commissioner Masters, that I don't know. I can look into that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas and Russell. This is a very interesting discussion. It goes a little bit beyond the probably the scope of a presentation today, but nevertheless, I think it's important to consider what we can do within the boundaries of our responsibility in assisting the speediest rollout of broadband as possible. Maybe that we could discuss this further in a discussion item on next week's agenda if Russell finds out more information or whatever, or if Russell or what's our staff person's name? I'm just forgetting. He just spoke. People tell me.
Mike,
yes. Mike can get any further information from the broadband office. It really is disturbing to think about all that money that was not able to be applied to projects that we knew were ready to go, which we just didn't have adequate funds to provide. And there needs to be a fix to that. And I would like to see us be as proactive as we can about it. So rather than just sitting on our hands and saying, well, and I'm not suggesting we are, but I want to avoid sitting on our hands when, there may be some opportunity for our process to be a conduit for those funds if the broadband office can't get their program running speedily as they would like. So, Mike, do you think it would be appropriate for this to be brought up as another discussion item in the future so we can get a little better handle on these issues?
Madam Chair, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'll get a better idea what's happening with the Connect New Mexico Council today. I am curious as to what they have submitted to the NTIA as their initial plan, and there's nothing preventing me or us from having a discussion with them over there about things that are going on. So I think it would be perfectly fine for us to give you an update on what's going on over there, but also what they're considering as far as projects that we were unable to fund, and if those can be funded through the Connect New Mexico Council and either through the federal projects or there's other monies, state monies too, that they're putting towards broadband. There are issues with the federal monies as far as identifying what kind of entities can receive these. I think Russell touched on it, but again, we cater really to ETCs and private entities, and they have more of these. The feds are more focusing on public-private partnerships and governmental enities for expenditure. So I'm not sure how that maps, but I'll see if I can find out more information by next week or the week after, whenever it is the commission wants to discuss this.
Well, fine. Yeah, if you could just let us know when you have more information and we could put it on for a discussion item.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay,
And
thank you very much.
Madam Chair, just one more note very quickly.
Mhm.
I'll just remind the commission that another thing the commission did that was very proactive that the commission might want to consider doing again is proposing legislation that would allow the commission to simply raise more money within the fund by raising the cap. In the report to the legislature last year, which, by the way, I'll be bringing an order to open a docket for this year's report next week. In last year's report, the commission recommended a 3-year temporary increase of the statutory cap on the fund from $30 million to $40 million. And that did result in a bill that was sponsored. I don't recall the representative's name, but she was very helpful and responsive, but it just, it didn't, I don't know if it didn't go anywhere. It wasn't considered to be on the governor's call, because it was a 30-day session, but the commission might want to consider bringing up something like that again. And that can be discussed in the context of the report to the legislatures that will have to be filed this fall in any event.
And Russell, just on that point, Madam Chair,
Yes.
did we address the anti-donation issue in the report to the legislature? Because I think we ought to make that point. I mean, we all are very familiar with the Local Economic Development Act and its intent to comply with anti-donation, but obviously those funds are used for different purposes. And so I think in our next report to the legislature, we ought to allocate a section of that report on this anti-donation issue that we discussed.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And I will make sure that that's part of the draft.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Vice Chair Myasis. And thank you, Russell, for the suggestion about drafting legislation. I guess since you bring it up, you might have some of the best ideas about how it could be worded. So if we get to that point, maybe we could, maybe you could put a draft together.
Yes.
if and when we get there.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to approve the order.
Oh, thank you very much, Vice Chair. Do I have a second? Or Commissioner Fishman, I saw you waving your hand. Did you have a comment on this matter, or did you?
Well, I'll second, and I just wanted to make a comment on Mike. He could, with this transition in the broadband office, he could have been territorial, he could have been defensive, but instead he's been totally constructive, completely collaborative, and really focused on the public interest. And I just wanted to pass out kudos to Michael about just his incredibly constructive approach to this situation, where he could have felt threatened, and instead he just kind of leaned in, and in my opinion has just been a very positive force in this whole creation of the broadband office statewide. So Michael, just thank you. And then also I just wanted to let Michael know that I can never remember the state pledge either. So you've got company, and you shouldn't feel hurt by that.
Commissioner Fishman, thank you. And for the kind comments, I don't think that non-cooperation will help in any way. And I will make sure that I put that state pledge on my things to do list to remember, just in case.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman, and thank you, Mike. And yes, I also want to thank Mike for his very cooperative, collaborative approach, proactive, whatever you want to call it. But he's really been a team player across agencies in this case. So it makes me proud of our agency when our staff does that. So thanks very much. All right, so we've come to discussion
Chair.
item. Oh, yes. Oh,
we
sorry. We
vote?
have to vote on this, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes, I've got a motion and a second. Mike, can you take the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, now moving on, we're at our portion of the agenda on discussion items. We have an item for discussion and potential action presented by Renata Piri-Gallon, and it's in the matter of a contract for an economic advisor through December 31st, 2022. Renata, would you like to present this now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Chair Hall and Commissioners, I am here today to present the Tamara Seaton contract. It's a small professional service contract. I believe you all were emailed a copy of the contract. So this is a contract for an economic advisor services, and the services are outlined in the scope of work. It is a contract that will terminate on December 31st, 2022. And the hourly rate is $100 per hour, excluding gross receipts, tax, and the total compensation will not exceed $25,000. I just wanted to note that due to it being a small professional service contract, the last part, I've processed this contract, but the last part is it going to State Purchasing Division Contract Review Bureau because they have to approve it. And a PO has to be approved for it to be a fully executed contract. So it is not at this point. Also, because it is a small professional service contract under the purview of the New Mexico Procurement Code, this contract template is actually provided by State Purchasing Division. And the only areas I can modify in this template is the scope of work, the compensation, the term date, and the contact information. And it does go through legal review by our legal and signed off by Mr. Borman. And now I will stand for any questions.
So Renata, let me get this straight. You need us to vote to approve this moving forward, or?
My understanding, and I'll defer to OGC that I know is on the meeting, is I believe it's contract over 20,000 would come to you. I know RFPs are a little bit different because those are under the purview of procurement code and kind of go through a different process. But this being a small purchase professional service contract, it's being presented to the commissioners this morning. Okay,
it's a small purchase contract, but it is, I'm still not clear. This is for, I see, well, we don't, it depends on how much work we actually have Mr. Shayton perform, whether or not this would exceed the small purchases amount. Is that the issue here?
I don't believe so. And
okay, so what do you want us to do then?
I believe Russell, I'm going to defer to Russell, but I believe in the case of contracts over 20,000, they come to the commissioner for approval.
I'm going to defer to Judy because she is our financial expert.
Could you repeat the question?
My question is, what are we supposed to do for Renata? She has a contract with the with Mr. Shayton that will go to the end of the year, under which if we need his services,
yeah,
we can pay up to the amount of the contract.
Yes, and I looked at the scope of work.
Uh-huh. And the amount of the contract, I guess there's a final amount which it cannot exceed, but it may be, I believe is the issue. It may be that if we don't have sufficient work for him to, perform all the hours under the contract, then the amount that we pay may not reach over $20,000. Is that what you're talking about, Renata?
Chair Hall, the contract states 25,000 as it will not exceed. But
25.
we also have to put a purchase order in place for the contract that will be for 25,000 because the PO has to match the compensation in the contract.
Okay, so it may be that his services would come in somewhat under 25,000, but that's the ceiling amount, correct?
Yes, and
Yeah.
it states the total compensation of 25,000 in the contract.
Okay, so Judy, does this
And-
require our vote?
Does the contract require a vote? It depends on, has the commission been voting on, there was a policy in place where and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, where I thought that, if it was over $20,000, the commission wanted to vote on it, that it's not required. But I thought that there was a policy. Am I remembering this correctly, Mike?
Yes, that I believe, I'm trying to recall the exact date in the past when this issue came up the last time, but it's come up a few times in the past. And that's the threshold that the commission had decided it wanted to have contracts come before it.
Right. So since this is for 20, not to exceed 25,000, it could be 25,000 and therefore it's more than 20,000. And therefore it should be voted on by the commission according to that policy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, and I'd like to add a little bit more information here. Following our commission's review of and interviewing of candidates for our economic advisor position, and that not bearing fruit in hiring anyone, we were able to enter into or develop this contract with one of the candidates that we were looking at closely, who was interested in providing contract services if we need them for the rest of the year. And so the terms of this contract were that it would not exceed $25,000. But this candidate, or Mr. Shaitan, has another job, but is able to provide us 2 days, a maximum of 2 days a week, 16 hours a week, to help us if we have need for his services. So basically, this contract would provide him to us up to 16 hours a week if we needed his services. So we don't know at this point whether or not it would exceed $20,000 or not. So, so I guess I'd like the advice of General Counsel then. Should we go ahead and vote on this now? I guess we're notified on the agenda, we're noticed for potential action, or should we wait until a point is reached when it looks like the contract will exceed $20,000?
No, I need to vote on the contract now. The contract now is written as not to exceed 25,000.
Okay, so just to make it clear, I didn't quite hear you. You say it's not necessary to vote on it now, Judy?
I say you need to vote on it now.
Okay.
Prior to execution, it is essentially a contract for $25,000. It may not be that much, but it could be. So at this point,
okay,
the commission should vote on it.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair.
I'd like to move to approve the proposed contract.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Mike, can you take the roll call vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to, oh, you can let TBA go.
Oh, sorry,
next.
discussion. I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Madam Chair, a few minutes ago, you indicated that you developed this contract and you referred to we. Can you describe who developed the contract?
I did in conjunction with General Counsel and Renata. Yes.
I believe that we did not give you permission to do this.
Well, I think that's what we're working on now. If the commission would like to have services available for economic advice, this would be a way to do it. And we have been unable to fill that slot. So this seems an expedient way of getting the opportunity when it presents itself to provide services. So in my opinion,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would appreciate it if I cannot be cut off, because according to the Constitution, I have a right to speak at the open meeting.
Yes, of course.
Madam Chair, this is an issue that has been reoccurring. Contracts, the hiring, it's all done behind the scenes. And it's put on the agenda with the intention it's for your information only. That is incorrect, the way things are being handled. This is the first time that I've heard about Mr. Shaken being given a contract. That's the reason why we have the watchdogs very closely viewing the open meetings. This is the reason why the watchdogs are submitting complaints to the Attorney General. We need to stop this. We need to stop behind the scene coordination with the General Counsel. I think the proper way is for Madam Chair to put it on the agenda and say, should we fill this position and how do we do it? Those are the two questions that should occur for a public meeting. Madam Chair, those are my comments. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Yes, Vice Chair Maestas.
I'm going to take the exact opposite tact on this. I think the full commission is aware and a part of the decision to create an advisory services group to advise the commission. This is a precedent-setting step that was part of the subject of the 2017 evaluation of the commission. And that was one of the glaring findings, in that the commission did not have appropriate subject matter experts. And so we all agreed to create this advisory services group. We're about, excuse me, several months away from the end of our terms. And it's no surprise that we've encountered some difficulties in hiring folks to fill these positions. We filled one in John Olmsted, and he's doing a great job. We ran into some snags during the interview process to hire an accountant, and I feel that this is the next best thing to getting those services, and that's on a small contractual basis. And I encourage us to pursue the same for the engineer position. We may have to pursue a small contract of services very similar to this. And so this is perfectly legal, perfectly appropriate. and consistent with the conditions that we face in trying to hire a full-time employee to fill this position. And in closing, Madam Chair, I want to commend you. We need to recognize and applaud initiative in this agency. And Madam Chair, you showed initiative in saying, hey, we couldn't hire this guy, but this is the next best thing. And so I commend you for taking the lead. I'm perfectly happy. I think the scope is appropriate in this contract. You involved all appropriate staff on the administrative services side, on the general counsel side. And so I commend you again for taking the lead in this and bringing this forward. So I intend to support this contract, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. I appreciate your analysis of the situation. Commissioner Fishman, I see you wanted to say something.
Basically, just ditto the comments. Thank you for coming up with a way to a solution that gets us at least part of the way there when we were kind of hitting a wall. And I want to encourage initiative from any commissioner who brings us an idea, and I certainly don't want to get in the way of someone who's making positive progress on a particular issue. And I think that's what you did here. I'll also say, I was aware that you've been working on this for a while, so I certainly don't feel in any way surprised or blindsided by this. Even if I had been surprised or blindsided, I would have been pleasantly surprised and said, "Oh yeah, let's go for it." But I've had plenty of notice that you were doing this. I can't quite recall how or why, but I have. And again, thank you and kudos for doing that.
Thank you very much, commissioners. I appreciate that. And I guess our next order of business should be to take a vote then. So Mike, can you, let's see, so we'll need a motion to approve this contract. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. We have a motion and a second. Mike, can you take the roll call vote?
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
No.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. 4-1, excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So we are now at the at item Roman numeral 10, communications with Chief of Staff. Mr. Probst, I see, is all ready to go.
Ready to
Take it
go.
away, Mr. Probst.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Just one item I want to cover this morning. If you haven't looked at the newspaper recently, you'll see it later on in the day when you do. But the Legislative Finance Committee announced this morning that the August consensus revenue forecast includes an additional $2.5 billion. And no, I didn't make a mistake, an additional $2.5 billion in revenues for fiscal year 24. That is a astounding number. Majority of that additional revenue, of course, Madam Chair and members of the commission, comes from oil and gas revenues, but there have been increases in revenues across the board. And so that's the additional money that the legislature will have to spend come January. And spending that money is not always easier. I remember, Madam Chair, when I moved back to New Mexico, my first job in state government, as you know, was working for, at that time, Secretary Lujan Grisham, who was Secretary of the Department of Health. And I remember before my first legislative session working for her, she said that legislative sessions where there's a lot of money are oftentimes more difficult than legislative sessions where there are no additional money. So I'm sure the legislature will be working hard over the next few months to determine how to spend that additional revenues. But I wanted to give you that information. We have the actual copies of the presentations that were made this morning, and I'll send those out to the commissioners, to all commissioners as well, because there's a lot of detail in there that you also might find of interest. And with that, Madam Chair, happy to discuss any other issues that you or the commissioners have.
Wayne, thank you very much. That's really, I haven't looked at the paper yet this morning, so that's very exciting news. And if it's coming in 2024, I guess the new commission will, I would hope that they can reap some of those benefits in their work as well. That's very impressive, though. I'm glad to hear it. Does anybody have any questions for our Chief of Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hearing none, I guess there are none. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Probst. Okay, we have communications with General Counsel. Mike, do you have anything?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't tell if I was muted or not. The one thing I wanted to let the commissioners know is that we are attending, we as in the Office of General Counsel attorneys are attending the Electric Energy in the Southwest Conference that is taking place tomorrow and Friday. So we will be out of touch a bit in terms of being able to react quickly to communications from the commissioners and other folks. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. And that's the substance of my communications.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that information. I'm actually attending it myself, and so is my assistant. Being lawyers as well, we need the credit as well. The legal, the continuing education credits. However, I'm going to be available. So to the extent I can respond to people during breaks and lunch. So I'm hopeful that if a crisis arises, that you guys will be able to respond during your breaks.
Yes, that's why. Sorry, there's some feedback there. I was just trying to say that we wouldn't be able to react quickly to things.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you never know what's going to happen here at the commission on a day-by-day basis.
If the office burns down, we'll come running.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see. All right, now we're at communications with commissioners, and we have underneath us a work plan review. I just wanted to describe the progress we've made so far. I'm glad to say my assistant has found some software on the internet that allows us to create essentially Gantt charts, and he's still working on inputting things, and I think can probably entertain more or can utilize more information from staff now, but I'll let Colin describe that. So Colin, you want to make a little bit of an explanation about where we are with that now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. We're working on developing an Excel Gantt chart for the work plan for the remainder of the calendar year. I want to thank Brad Borman and OGC, and particularly Anthony Medeiros for his detailed updates on this timeline for the rest of the work that we have for the year. So where we are right now is we've pretty much got the sheet built out, and I'm inputting the data that members of staff have sent me. So be on the lookout for that coming out tomorrow, and I will need some updates and corrections to some dummy data that I have inserted right now, so that we have an accurate forecast and we can foresee conflicts and bottlenecks before they happen. but I will be sending out a sheet, and I think it's going to be best to just receive email updates in text form, because the sheet is pretty easily corruptible with all the formulas. And I will include detailed instructions along with the email. But I'm pretty excited about this planning tool, and I want to thank Madam Chair for helping me out with this, because I did not know what a Gantt chart was until we started working on this last week. But I think it's going to be a great tool for the commission, and I'll include an email tomorrow with the data that we're looking for to come back to be plugged in, and then hopefully we will be able to present the entire work plan in depth next week. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you, Colin. So, I guess you're just filling gaps in the information you're seeking. It will fill some gaps that or clarify some dates that we still need to put in. Is that correct, from staff or from whomever?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the Gantt chart works off of start and end dates. And for third quarter items right now, I just have dummy data for the end date as the beginning of the fourth quarter. But any more clarity we could get from hearing examiners, staff, OGC on expected end dates, even if they're not completely accurate, that will just give us a better idea of when our caseload starts creating time conflicts for us.
I see. Okay, commissioners, anybody have any questions of Colin while he's up here?
No, Madam Chair, just a comment, as a, I can geek out, with the best of them as an engineer. And of course, Gantt charts are, to me, very effective. And just the idea of introducing the concept of Gantt charts to track our own work. I mean, we require that of consultants that we hire. We should be able to do it as well. So I commend you for adding some analytics to not just identifying the work that we have, but tracking the progress and holding folks accountable. So kudos to you and Colin for that. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Chair Maestas. I appreciate that. I had just learned about them a short stint I had in business school. I went for a year, and I just love them because I'm just visual. If I can see a picture instead of reading a bunch of pages of data, I really appreciate it. And I always thought they were just a wonderful tool, but I think I learned how to do it for a short period of time, and not ever having needed to use one after that, since I was a lawyer, and only wrote words. I forgot how to do it, but I knew they existed. And so I'm glad that we can apply it to the commission, because this is a perfect place for them, I think, too. And you don't have to think too much. All you have to do is see the picture, and then it all comes together. It all starts to make sense. So hopefully it'll work that way for everybody. Anyhow, thank you very much for your presentation, Colin. Commissioners, does anybody have any commissioners have any other comments? Any information you'd like to bring to our attention?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Vice Chair.
I just want to let you know that I attended the New Mexico Rural Electric Co-op Association's Board of Managers last Wednesday. And they had some specific requests that I've already relayed to appropriate staff individuals. But what I want to make known is that, as you know, we have initiated a NOPR regarding a rule for compliance by rural electric co-ops with the ETA's renewable portfolio standards. And the agreement was that there's going to be a work group of generation and transmission folks, Tri-State Western Farmers, NMPRC, Kit Carson Electric, and they are gonna come up with some recommendations for the rule. I think there's an August 25th deadline, but they have shared some concerns regarding grid reliability in the context of compliance with the ETA's renewable portfolio standards. And my hope is that their concerns will be addressed in the rule. There's some potential, maybe misunderstandings in potential off-ramps regarding rural electric cooperative compliance with the RPS. So there's no need to discuss it now, Madam Chair, but I just wanted to let the commission know that I listened, I answered questions as best I could. And I think we're all looking forward to see what this working group comes up with for recommendations regarding our rule for RPS compliance by co-ops.
Thank you very much. That sounds very productive. I'm really glad you were able to attend that. Certainly, in our struggles with getting rules implemented, we've been largely addressing comments that have come in from IOUs and been thinking about their compliance and so forth. But rural co-ops, have a hard time complying and with some of these requirements that are pretty demanding, and they don't have the resources that IOUs have, certainly. And so I'm very sympathetic to their concerns. However, the statutes say what they do. So I think it's very important for them to be able to have a process like that in place so we can work through issues and help reach the right outcome. So I'm glad you were able to be there. Commissioner Fishman, did you have a comment to make?
Vice Chair Maestas and I sat in on the resource sufficiency meeting for summer 2023. And without getting into too much detail, it certainly seems to me, and I think to both of us, that there are options that just don't seem to be considered so far in PNM's planning for summer 2023, and that they need to maybe think a little more broadly about solutions being considered and being put together. And I certainly plan to toss out some ideas, and Judy, you may want to jump in and comment on this as well, about other options that PNM could be pursuing and things that they could be working on now to be sure that we have some backup and contingency plans for whatever permanent, to back up whatever permanent resources they can bring into place for our apparent substantial shortage of energy for 2023 as projected today. So anyway, I just wanted to alert the commission to that, and that I and probably Commissioner Maestas as well will be working with General Counsel to see if what kind of ideas we can put together to get some more robust and earlier planning in place for summer 2023, because the time to be doing it is now, and it takes time to put these things in place. So I'll just leave it at that, and Judy and Commissioner Maestas, you may want to comment further.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's great to have Commissioner Fishman join our resource adequacy summer readiness biweekly meetings. Specifically, we did identify some to-dos. As many of the commissioners know, we have a standing compliance order with a list of questions that we ask PNM to respond to. And I think we realized that those questions were really more germane to summer 2022. So we may revisit that compliance order and amend the questions to have more of a focus on summer 2023 based on the very low reserve margin that's been projected thus far for summer 2023 by PNM. The other effort that we discussed is potentially opening a docket to ask for certain issues to be addressed in the next IRP by PNM. So we're still, I think, making a lot of progress, and I just want to assure folks out there that the PRC is being vigilant and proactive and trying to stay ahead of any resource adequacy issues. And I think we're using all the tools available to be proactive. And so I just think it's wonderful to have Commissioner Fishman join this group. And so with that, Judy, I don't know if you want to either add or hopefully not subtract.
No, the only part I was going to add was some of the statements that you made, Commissioner Maestas, regarding looking at ways to revise our compliance order to receive the kind of information that we are actually looking at now regarding 2023.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Steve, are you trying to say something? There you go.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, great. Well, that's very interesting. I'm very glad to hear you say these things, both Vice Chair Maestas and Commissioner Fishman. Looking at the loads and resources table and other information, I haven't had the opportunity to study those reports that they've been sending in, but I would like to see them. And if I could see them, if there are notes from that meeting or something, I'd like the opportunity to look at those too, because I too am very interested in the quality and quantity of information we're getting. And if, it doesn't look like there is sufficient analysis or investigation of options, then I definitely think we need to be involved in trying to help come up with solutions for that. So I'm very glad that we are that we've got that docket going. And if you think you need to, seek further information or come up with different solutions, I wholeheartedly support that. Yes.
Madam Chair, yeah, just so, and Judy and Russell, if communicating things that should not be communicated, just stop me, but I think I'm okay on solid ground with this. We were concerned particularly with two things, to just get a little more specific. One is in the last several reports from PNM on progress in getting these resources have just been kind of no new news. And obviously we feel a little bit left in the dark on that. There should be something going on more than no new news. So that was a little bit of a red flag for us. And my personal concern is in looking at everything that we understand has been discussed. We haven't seen much action on kind of basic things like, a lot of utilities have programs in place where if there's a power shortage, they've contracted with customers for curtailment of power that might be served to them. And they pay customers ahead of time to say 10, 12, 15 times a year, if there are power shortages, that they will take a curtailment of power deliveries in order to take a stress off the system. And that certainly we'd rather do that than rolling blackouts. Yet we haven't seen anything about programs of that nature that might be put in place as backup for 2023. And, that's the kind of stuff that we want to see progress on. And that, I think we need to get more details and see if there's work of any kind being done on that. And so anyway, I just wanted to put a little more meat on the bone of what we're talking about. And it's stuff that, it's stuff that's done elsewhere in the country. It's stuff it's not complicated to talk about, might be complicated to implement, but we should at least know, have we looked at these options and what can we do to perhaps add them to our menu of options for 2023.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for mentioning that, Commissioner Fishman. I have heard of those types of programs as well. And I remember reading about them somewhere. I can't pinpoint where now, but I understand that when they're implemented, they cause very little, or can be designed to cause very little interference with people's daily lives. And if people have opted in to do them, they can be very effective. So I applaud you guys coming up with creative ideas like that. I think it's a very good idea, and I think it is something we definitely it is appropriate for us to suggest to the utility.
So we just need to push on looking at these options, and the IRP is one place where that can happen, as Vice Chair Maestas pointed out.
Yes,
and as Judy pointed out when we met. So anyway, I just want to, we've got agency in this, and we should be pushing, and we should be getting clarity on what's being done here. And again, so just expect that there might be a couple of orders coming forward that we'll ask the commission to discuss to address these specific issues, and just kind of a heads up that it's coming.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any other commissioners have any other comments they'd like to make or information they'd like to bring to communications? Mr. Byrd? Oh, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Thank you. I just wanted to share information regarding New Mexico Rural Electric Co-op Association. As you all know, they sponsored a get-together, and we haven't done that in 3 years, and it was wonderful to see everybody there. I received multiple comments from different individuals. They are all thanking just the word thank you. A majority came from them. So my sense is that they're looking forward to how the new government structure is going to be instituted in January 2023. I'm getting the perception from the general public that our work at the Public Regulation Commission is less than 100 days left. And so that's just a sense. And 1 year ago in August 2021, I stated to a reporter, I don't remember which one it was, that I disagreed with my colleagues as far as beefing up the staff. And they quoted me as saying that I don't understand where my colleagues are coming from, because the public, they better understand how the operation is moving forward. So after 1 year, we don't have what was requested. And now we're going through emergency contracts. And I just wanted to comment on that, and I feel very good. I feel very good about expressing my voice about the proper way of doing things, in my opinion. And I am very proud to serve on the commission. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time of the year. We're headed through the fall season. And I'm just grateful for positive gratitude moving forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. I have to say, I feel the same way about serving on the commission. I feel very grateful that we all have the opportunity to help our community and our state in the various ways we have. So I appreciate you saying that. So Commissioner Byrd, did you have anything that you wanted to mention at all?
No, Madam Chair,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Well, I wanted to report to the commission about the trip I just took to Golden, Colorado over the past 2 days to attend a conference of the Western Power Players. It's a conference that has been developed, and this is the fifth time it's met. It meets every 6 months, and it's sponsored by I don't know if sponsor is the right word, but it's I think that is the right word actually, by a legislator in Colorado, Chris Henson, who has been trying to create a forum where there can be discussions among interested and relevant parties, not just commissioners, but all sorts of people involved in the renewable energy sphere and other types of regulators to discuss the development to the extent it's going on in the West of an active regional transmission organization. You know, we've had presentations by CAISO and SPP in the past, and I thought we were going to be hearing from SPP in the near future about, their various options that are being provided. Certainly, we know that there's the Western Energy Imbalance Market going on right now, and that's operated by CAISO in the West. And SPP has, I think, presented to us in the past about their energy imbalance market services that they're also offering in the West. But there are other entities that exist in the West, like the Western Power Pool, and there's a sharing organization, the name of which I forget right now, for resource adequacy that I know PNM is a member of. Your discussion, Commissioner Fishman and Vice Chair Maestas, of resource adequacy makes me think of those groups as well. But I brought this to mind, but I also did want to mention this conference and because it's been a productive opportunity for all the parties involved, I think, to get a better idea of at least what are all the efforts going on in the West by different entities, and how could they be coordinated or simplified or something, because there has been so many conversations going on about what will be happening with an RTO in the West that I think the thrust this time was to how to kind of get some consolidation around that issue. And one very interesting thing that arose, and I believe the document was emailed to all of us, but I'm not sure. It had to do with a resolution that was passed, I think last Friday in the California in the legislature, in their assembly, which is their house. You know, it's a bicameral. They have a Senate, but this was their assembly that passed it unanimously, and it was a document that was ordering the performance of a study to be done by the end of next February, which is pretty short term, given what the study is, into the potential benefits of California establishing an RTO, or I guess having the CAISO. I guess the CAISO is ordering. Actually, I don't want to misquote it, but in any case, the Assembly wanted to have a study performed to examine the benefits to California of creating a regional transmission organization of some sort. And in particular, some of the language that they included specifically acknowledged that California has been struggling with resource adequacy, and other Western states have been. And California acknowledged they rely on their neighbors. And so they wanted, and of course, then they acknowledged all the benefits that can be derived from a larger market, so that there are more opportunities to acquire resources. So, and as I say, it was voted on unanimously, and the sponsor of that bill was able to participate virtually and discuss with us, explain to us what he knew about the tone of the legislature in California. And he said it's certainly because of the extreme weather events and the resource deficiencies in the West, that the legislature is now becoming much more responsive to that notion of the benefits to their state and their needs to actually try to examine whether they should take this course. So that was a very interesting development, and I believe Colin emailed this out again, but I think we all got it. I just received it last Friday, I think, and so I think it was sent to all the commissioners, but I'm not sure. So I had Colin. I asked Colin to send it out again to everybody so you can see it for yourself. But I just wanted to mention that as we talk about resource adequacy, because it is definitely a concern for everybody here in the West, but we do see a lot more attention being paid. Now, what I can't really report on, because similar to how things are with our agency and what kind of information we're getting from the utilities here, there was not a lot of available information about what utilities in the West in general are thinking or planning on doing. So I can't give you any insight or any further knowledge on that, but I understand they do meet and they do discuss, but it's pretty much something that's not shared information at this point. So at least as far as I can discern from my conversations with people there. So in any case, I think this is a positive development. And I think the fact that Southwest Power Pool is beginning to provide, substantial services in the West, I think that might also be a factor, but I don't know. That's just another part of the conversation. But I wanted to report these developments to the commission and let them know that these things are being talked about very energetically in the West. And I think we're definitely on the right track in maintaining our scrutiny of our situation in our state. So with that, I'll quit talking. If anybody has any questions, or if you haven't been able to find that resolution in your box and would like to see it, please let me know. You're on mute, Steve.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, did I understand you correctly that California, which has been very possessive of controlling CAISO and kind of controlling whatever RTO might be developed on a larger regional basis, are they starting to ease up on that stance? And understand that it needs to be a more collaborative process than them just dominating?
Yes, absolutely. And the language in the resolution is pretty striking on that point. Actually, I wondered if it would be possible to put that resolution up. Colin, do you have that? And can you make it available to whoever's in control of the screen sharing?
Madam Chair, I'll put it on the screen.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. So you must have it, I guess. Okay. So can you scroll down, Patrick? Okay, scroll down further. You see this talks about they want to have a report that summarizes recent relevant studies on the impact of expanded regional cooperation in California. It looks like a typo. Identifying key issues that will most effectively advance the state's energy goals, including any available studies. So they want to look at all the other studies. Can you scroll down further? There's a lot to it, but scroll down further. I just want to get to this one point. Scroll further. Further, wait a minute. Wait, I'm saying go back up a minute. Here we go. Whereas California is already dependent on its neighbors, historically importing approximately 1/3 of its total energy requirements and routinely importing significant more resources from its neighboring states during the most critical summer days. We go down further. Further. Well, wait. You talk about the benefits of the energy balance market. Go further, please. This is where they say they're planning the day ahead market. Go further. Okay, wait. So let's see, they found that the expansion of the independent system operator had annual net benefits to the commission. I'm sorry, I'm not finding that. Go further.
Yeah, you don't need to, I mean,
No.
just so we have a general sense.
Yeah, well, in any case, that one paragraph is not the only paragraph. There are other paragraphs where they say they recognize the value of their neighbors. So I think, well, anyhow, you'll read it. You'll get the impact from it. When they really set out the case for why it would be a very good thing to do to look very closely into having a regional transmission organization. And I think it's significant that they want this report by the end of February next year. Their legislature is in session most of the year. So I'm optimistic about that. And so was the author, Commissioner Holden, Representative Holden. So anyhow, thanks very much for looking at that with me. And I hope you guys get a chance to read it because, it's hopeful. And I just think it corroborates what we're doing here in keeping our eye on the ball on resource adequacy and making sure that we really push the envelope there and try to get as much information as we can. So thanks very much. So if there are does anybody have any other further comments? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.